The Reporter's Report is brought to you by the Foundation for Artistic Radio Telecommunication Sciences and the Jean and Jeannette Lambaster Trust. This is part 2 of part 1 of my interview with Louis Appleseed, author of Dance Macabre, Dance of Darkness, My Dance with Destiny. So how did you stack them, horizontally or vertically?
Well, I stacked the bottom one vertically. The second one I stacked horizontally.
So the bottom one's vertical. You have a cross log on top.
Correct.
Running horizontally.
Yes. Perpendicular
to the ground. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, parallel to the ground, perpendicular to the other log.
Excuse me. Yes, parallel to the ground, perpendicular to the other log.
Yeah.
Did you support the T structure at all, like on either side?
No, actually, there weren't any other logs, so I just had to balance.
You had 2 logs.
Yeah, that's it.
And you had a T structure going on.
Mm-hmm.
And these were round logs.
Correct, yeah. They're round.
Pardon me if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, but wouldn't the top log roll off the bottom log?
You are. Yeah, you are. Overstepping.
So you get to this cat, and then what happens?
Well, that's when what seemed to me to be the caretaker of the mansion, very short man, extremely pale, very skinny, gaunt face. His eyes appeared to be suffering from jaundice. He comes running down the driveway, screaming at me. He was wearing tattered robes.
Do you have any video footage?
I don't have any video footage, unfortunately.
I'd like to see that.
I would too, just to see if the face that I remember in my head is actually what his face looked like, because I remember it so horrifying. It looked like he hadn't eaten for days. You could see the bones in his fingers protruding. He was a very scary man. And he's the one who ended up then leading me up the driveway and into the mansion.
What allowed you to enter this mansion? I mean, usually you'd be chased away, you know.
So exactly, they were doing this open house. It was sort of a PR thing. It seemed as if they wanted to, abandon their reputation as a spooky haunted place on the outskirts of town, and they wanted to welcome the community in and show them at least the idea of being normal, as if they weren't these bizarre people.
Now, what group was this? Because you said St. Creepy passed away. Were these friends of St. Creepy?
These were his followers.
His followers?
His followers, yeah. I later discovered they were his followers. They were a part of a cult that had been created around St. Creepy's writings and beliefs and benefaction. And they worshipped St. Creepy. They treated him like a prophet.
Are you good on water? Do you need any more water before we continue the interview?
I'm okay on water.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, there's this cult, and you stumble upon it, and they're doing this sort of open house thing. What tipped you off that they were a cult?
Well, there were lots of occult objects throughout the house as I continued to explore with the group of regular people from Grovesport who were with me, which there was a considerable turnout of folk. There were these 2 kids who I befriended right away, and they were the ones who had a lot of inside knowledge on this St. Creepy and his cult. They were 2 teenage boys. I can't disclose their names in order to protect their identities. But they claimed they were mystery solvers.
Right, the mystery solvers.
Yeah. You're familiar.
Well, from the book.
Okay.
Yeah. You mentioned you have a chapter on them.
Yes, yeah, they're really interesting guys. Really interesting. I guess Grovesport has, in the past couple decades, had an influx of very bizarre occurrences taking place in different parts of town, and these kids always go and investigate and try to get to the bottom of it. So naturally, they couldn't pass up an opportunity to explore this mansion that they've always been waiting to, get their hands on. They told me that once before they climbed the fence.
Really?
And they were chased off the property immediately.
How did they climb the fence?
Well, this is a funny story, actually. They also used logs. But when they did it, there were a lot more logs available.
Now, what was the structure of their log setup?
So they had the same structure as me, but they had more logs.
To support the T.
Exactly. Gotcha. And then one of them stood on top of it, and the other got on the other's shoulders, and they heaved the second guy over the fence.
Right, like a human trebuchet.
Exactly. So only one of them actually got over. And right away, he said that same man who chased at me when I arrived came after him. Jumped on his back, started scratching his ears, yelling at him to leave, to never come back, that he wasn't supposed to climb that fence. This very short man, he threw him back over the fence.
Wow.
I know. Remarkable.
Very remarkable.
Considering it's 20 feet high, he had to at least throw him 22, 23 feet to clear the fence.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, even at that angle, it's a steep throw.
Yeah.
Steep throw.
So when they told me that, it seemed to me that these people had some sort of magical powers. They were tapping into something bizarre. I mean, you could feel the energy around the mansion. Obviously, you put up a big black 20-foot gate, it's going to create a certain ambiance. You put up stained glass windows in every room in your mansion, it's going to, create an ambiance. But it seemed like some sort of weird energy vortex, this mansion.
Talk a little bit more about the ambiance.
Of course. There was a lot of candles. Chandeliers, but with candles.
Wow.
No light bulbs.
No light bulbs at all?
No light bulbs. Every room had candles. Some had torches. Vast carpets. Bizarre paintings on the walls.
Did the fire marshal know about the candles?
I'm guessing the fire marshal tried to go to the mansion, and the same thing happened to him that happened to the kids. I bet they chased him away. Or if he got on the other side of the fence, they probably threw him back over.
So on top of dealing with an organization that was a cult and also practicing some sort of occult rituals or something like that, you were also dealing with a fire hazard.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess technically, I wasn't too concerned about the candles.
Sure. That's interesting because ultimately, at the end of the book, the house burns down.
Yeah.
Sort of the big twist of the story.
Well, the house did not burn down because of the candles. The house burnt down because I burnt it down.
Right, yeah, you say that in the epilogue.
Well, it was actually the last chapter of the book that I say that in.
Not the epilogue.
No, in the epilogue...
I thought you mentioned in the epilogue.
No, in the epilogue, I just talk about my journey home. And what it was like returning to daily life after such a weird night. Right,
so here, third sentence down, second paragraph in the epilogue, you say, after I burnt down St. Creepy's mansion.
I don't know about that. I'm not certain what copies of the book you have.
I have the
Did you just download a PDF for free?
No, it's
online?
a printed copy. It's scanned from these papers are scanned from the printed copy.
They're scanned from the printed copy?
They are, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because there seems to be a URL in the top left corner there. I only make money from this book if you buy it.
Right, we bought the book, though.
Well, it doesn't seem like you bought it. It seems like you just downloaded this from some website.
No, so our intern doesn't know how to scan, so he actually screenshotted this. So we just printed that out.
Who's this intern?
Oh, we fired him. It's irrelevant.
Because of this book? Because of the down?
No. Because he was very rude. He was very rude.
I'm sorry to hear that.
He wouldn't show up on time, and then. So you get into the mansion.
Yes.
And
I meet those kids.
And you meet those kids.
Mm-hmm.
What was the second thing you see?
The second thing I see? Okay. Well, the first thing I see is a liter of Pepsi just sitting on a table. And then the second thing I see is that short, frail man who led me up the driveway chugging that liter of Pepsi. Drinking it faster than I've ever seen anyone drink anything.
Do you think that his ability to ingest carbonated beverages at such an alarming rate was one of his supernatural abilities?
It really appeared like it. I mean, the way that he slurped it down is probably 3-4 seconds.
Right, in the book you describe it as utterly primal.
Oh, it was. And he let out one of the loudest belches I've heard afterwards. And then I didn't see him for a while. He scampered away, and I didn't see him till later that evening. After that, a different gentleman appeared, and he seemed to be leading the tour. And he kind of seemed to be the guy in charge.
How many people were on this tour?
There were a lot of people. There was probably about 20. The kids I mentioned, a lot of old people who grew up wondering about this St. Creepy fella. So I think they wanted to try to find out the mystery before they also passed away. Mm-hmm. And then there were a few other people I didn't really talk to all that much.
Now, there was one person in this group who I found, at least while reading the book, to be by far the most obnoxious of all the people in this group. And I don't know if that's a personal opinion or if that is something you intended in the book. But could you describe Kyle P. for us?
Yeah. Do I have to?
You don't have to, but I would like to know.
Okay. Well, Kyle P. He was middle-aged man. He's wearing sandals and socks. So right away I knew something was up. And he had a really large camera that he was taking pictures with. And every time we went into a new room, he would shout, "Oh, ho, ho! I could live in this room."
Yeah, when I was reading your book, every time you mentioned Kyle P., I felt this very strong, visceral, sort of guttural anger boil up in me, and I threw your book against my wall a couple of times.
He was just a nasty person. He was not a nice person to be around. Turns out, later we found out that he was a plant.
He was a plant?
Yeah, they planted him in the group to sow divisiveness between us. Because a lot of the group really liked this guy. But the other half of us could not stand him.
See, you never mentioned that in the book. I feel like I would have felt a little bit of satisfaction or closure.
Like I said, I wrote it in one go, and so the most important details get in there.
Yeah, it shows.
And the stuff that falls through the cracks
It
falls
shows.
through the cracks.
It shows.
Yeah, thank you.
So you're going from room to room.
Going from room to room. We get to the trophy room. All of these animals that I guess St. Creepy hunted when he was younger. Lions, grizzly bear, giant moose, even had an octopus, a porcupine, jellyfish. So we get to that room, and I'm inspecting the porcupine, and then all the candles go out, like as if just a giant gust of wind sweeps through the room,
Right.
and a smoke starts filling the room.
How did you see the smoke?
I could smell the smoke. I couldn't see the smoke.
The smoke from the candles?
It wasn't from the candles. And that's what made it so suspicious. That's what got most of us on guard as to something else was
Could you
happen.
describe the smell of the smoke?
It was a heavy smoke. If you breathed in through your nose, it really burned your nostrils. If you breathed in through your mouth, it gave you dry mouth, but it didn't burn your mouth or your throat. It smelled like cedar. It smelled a little bit like a sauna, but as if a sauna caught fire. Mm-hmm. And then, after smelling it more and more, then it started to smell like meat. And then, out of nowhere, double doors open up, and 5 people, the small gentleman from before, the taller, thin guy who was our tour guide, and the 3 other people with him, are on the other side of the doors, and they welcome us into an enormous dining hall where there's a feast set on the table.
Part 2 of Part 1 is continued in Part 3 of Part 1 of The Reporter's Report.